This program contains reenactments of real people and real events. Viewer discretion is advised. Together forever.
I was feeling excited and so in love and so happy to be with him.
And this night will seal their bond.
They were going to make love for the first time.
But before this date is over, true love will give way to unthinkable violence.
He was looking for someone to attack, to hurt, to kill.
And their night to remember will linger for all the wrong reasons.
I was thinking I'm not going to make it through this alive.
October 1972, the high desert city of Albuquerque, New Mexico, makes a sweeping backdrop for young romance. College student Rick Aker takes girlfriend Darlene Levin on a date to toast his 20th birthday.
Rick and Darlene were students at the University of Albuquerque. They had recently met. She was a freshman. He was a little bit older. Their relationship was pretty new.
We decided we would go out to dinner and enjoy the evening.
Rick, a longtime resident, grew up in the Southwest. But Darlene is a newcomer. And for this native Chicagoan, the desert is an alien landscape. Together for a couple months, they both hope Rick's birthday will mark a new phase in their budding relationship.
And she had some special things for me that night.
I was a virgin before this night, and I was saving it for him because he was so special to me.
It was going to be Darlene's first time ever together that evening. But that wasn't all that happened that night.
Throughout dinner, their anticipation mounts. Rick can't wait to be alone with Darlene, far away from prying eyes.
After the dinner, Rick decided to take Darlene out to the Mesa, which is about a mile outside of town.
Because it's a frequent place for young lovers to be together.
We could see the lights from the city from that area, but we weren't really paying attention to that at that point.
Rick wants to enhance the mood, so he turns on the radio for a little country music. It's a trivial decision, one that will have dire consequences. But first, the moment they've been aching for.
Rick and Darlene decided to consummate their relationship in the backseat of a car, out in the Mesa, just the two of them.
With the stars above and the city lights so far away, they feel like the only two people on Earth. While the desert grows colder and colder, inside the car, there's more than enough heat to keep the young couple warm.
We fumbled around. Didn't go totally smoothly, but it was still very special because it was Rick.
Well, they had to get back. Not only was it getting cold, it was October. They worried that their roommates would start to wonder where they were.
But what should have been the end of a magical night is just the beginning.
Unfortunately, because they had left the radio on, Rick and Darlene were unable to start the car. The battery was dead.
It appears to be an innocent mistake, and Rick seems apologetic. With no homes or cars in sight, he suggests they walk back to town through the seemingly empty desert.
We were in a remote spot, but I thought we can make it back.
Darlene and Rick have barely begun the hike when a car unexpectedly appears on the barren mesa and drives straight for them.
It was highly unusual for a car to be coming from that direction. Cars just don't come out of the desert.
They thought that was weird because there's nothing out there.
In the darkened interior, they make out the forms of 3 men.
I was wondering, who's out here this late at night?
But Darlene's fear turns to relief. The 3 men seem willing to help.
They were 3 Mexicans, around our age.
Rick and Darlene appeared relieved. They thought, here we are getting rescued.
I was thinking it's nice of them to stop. They see our hood up, and looks like somebody wants to help us.
But looks can be deceiving.
And 3 men got out of the car. And they had a gun.
Darlene's most memorable date is about to turn into a terrifying ordeal.
Things went terribly wrong. It was as close to a nightmare as you can get.
And the nightmare has only just begun. Albuquerque College students Darlene Levin and Rick Aker are on the date of a lifetime.
Rick and Darlene decided to go out to a nice secluded spot out in the desert where they were going to consummate their relationship.
Once the passion ended, the trouble began.
Rick's car wouldn't start. He tried and tried. The battery was dead. We weren't going anywhere.
As they set out on the long hike across the dark and frigid mesa, a car appears out of nowhere with 3 men inside.
And the driver did ask, do you need some help? And we go, sure we do. My car won't start. He goes, we'll give you a hand. And at this point, I told Darlene, we're going to be okay.
But that's when the young couple's date goes to hell.
When they pulled the gun out, it wasn't sinking in yet. This isn't really happening.
Just went numb at the same time, thinking maybe we're gonna die.
Rick contemplates rushing the gunman, but before he can act, he says the strangers violently grab hold of Darlene.
You're powerless. There are things that go through your mind so fast. Could I do this? Could I do that? But the bottom line was she wasn't close to me. I couldn't stand between her and them.
The 2 men were ripping off my pants. And I couldn't fight back. I was questioning it. Why are you doing this? What did I do? I didn't do anything.
What was the reason behind this? And he shoved the gun into me even harder and told me just to shut up or he's gonna shoot me.
But it was of no use. And then the man shoved the car into gear.
The kidnappers drive Rick and Darlene deep into the bleak and trackless desert.
The driver kept his headlights turned off, which is not a good sign.
I was scared for my life.
It was never ending. I could hear her cry. I could hear her call my name. And I could do nothing.
Desperate, Rick frantically begs the kidnappers to take his wallet. But these men aren't interested in money.
I knew that when they didn't accept what I had offered, that there's gonna be more than a robbery.
The car speeds onward into the barren wasteland and toward unspeakable horrors that will haunt Rick and Darlene for the rest of their lives.
Rick and Darlene were given no indication of where they were going whatsoever. For all they knew, it could have been to Mexico.
Finally, the driver stops for no apparent reason.
It was dark. They were out in the middle of nowhere.
I was wondering, what are they gonna do next? What are they gonna do to us, or what are they gonna do to me?
Confused and paralyzed with fear, Rick and Darlene are dragged away from the car.
I'm not quite sure of the distance. I could hear them getting her out of the car and her screaming.
And then, without warning,
He hit Rick over the head with a gun. Rick went to his knees, like preparing for an execution.
There's a gunman pointing the gun at her true love, and all she can do is watch.
The other guy walking up said, "Shoot him."
in what seems like slow motion, Rick hears the gunman pull the trigger.
And everything freezes.
Rick Aker and Darlene Levin's long-anticipated date has turned into a nightmare more horrific than they could have ever imagined.
They have guns put in their faces, and they're threatened with their lives.
According to the couple, a petrified Darlene watches helplessly and sees one man press the gun to Rick's head and pull the trigger. But nothing happens.
It looked like the gun had malfunctioned and misfired.
He tried to fix it. He got very frustrated and got more and more angry.
Rick seizes his chance for survival.
Rick tried to fight back. There's two of them, one of him. He didn't have a chance.
Darlene is powerless as she watches the men beat Rick brutally about the head.
I was frozen. I couldn't move. I felt like petrified, like I was made out of stone.
With Rick's apparently lifeless body at his feet, the gunman scours the desert floor, desperate to find something he's lost.
I thought he would want to get out of there as soon as possible. He just kept looking.
Minutes tick by and he abandons his search for what turns out to be his gun. Little does Darlene know, this is the one ray of hope in a hopeless night. Shoving Darlene back into the vehicle, the three assailants leave Rick's body behind for the coyotes.
I just watched them kill my boyfriend. I know they're capable of murder. Why would they keep me alive?
She has no idea what they're going to do with her. She has no idea where they're taking her. She feels like they're driving around for hours. And that might be true.
But nothing is more terrifying than the car stopping again. Darlene says one of the men screams at her in Spanish.
Because she doesn't speak Spanish, she can't understand what he says.
But the brutality that follows needs no translation.
All three of them raped me. I was trying not to look at them. I didn't want to see their faces all my life. it would have been haunting.
It's a gang rape.
What happened was this tremendous violation of her safety, of her body, of her person.
It seemed like years. I thought it would never end.
When it's over, Darlene must confront what she sees as the undeniable truth. After what she's gone through, why would these monsters keep her alive?
I was picturing what would happen next. And I was thinking, I hope that I don't linger. I want to die right away. I don't want to linger and be able to think that somebody just shot me.
But incredibly, instead of gunshots, she hears footsteps.
They're actually walking away from her. She hears car doors shut, and the next thing she knows, the car is driving off into the dark desert.
She has no idea where they're going. She has no idea which way they're going.
But she's quite certain they'll be back. Back to finish her off. Alone in the cold desert night, hope is in short supply. Darlene begins to accept that this barren wasteland will soon be her grave.
So I assumed this is where it ends for me.
And brutally gang raped her. And left her boyfriend Rick for dead in another part of the desert.
I had no idea where I was, and I was wondering where Rick was.
Instead of killing her, Darlene says her assailants left her to fight for her life or die in the hostile desert night. Believing her attackers will return at any moment, Darlene flees in the opposite direction.
I was walking and I had no idea how far I'd gone when I see some little house shacks.
You'd have to be from this area in that time to understand really what she came across. People who didn't have money or any way to support themselves would gather together building materials and make a makeshift house out on the desert.
She has no idea what's lurking behind the door. But if she hopes to survive, she'll have to get inside. Cautiously, she knocks.
A man answered, and I think I was just too overwhelmed to tell strangers at that point that I was raped.
Instead, Darlene says she's lost.
I sat down, the first time I had sat down since the rape, and I had no idea how tired I was.
She came in and laid down, passing out almost immediately.
Hours later, she awakes in a panic.
I didn't want to sleep. I wanted to find Rick.
Desperate, Darlene persuades the stranger to take her to authorities.
I was a mess. My eyes were all puffy, and I had been crying, and my clothes were torn. And I was a big mess.
But there's only one thing she cares about. They must find Rick. Instead, the police tell her an astonishing story. She is the one they've been looking for.
By this time, Rick had gotten help, and now there were officers searching everywhere frantically for Darlene.
A badly injured Rick crawled out of the desert a few hours earlier. Miraculously, he's being treated at a nearby hospital. After a night of relentless and unspeakable torture, it's time for a reunion like no other.
There she was, standing there. So beautiful, so awesome. She was alive.
When I first saw Rick, I was so relieved to see that he was okay. We hugged, and it felt so good.
Rick has severe contusions to his head, a broken nose, and 3 broken ribs. Apprehending the assault suspects proves easier than expected.
Fortunately, the vehicle that the 3 assailants were in was very distinctive. Police were able to locate the vehicle within just a few hours, found the 3 men inside, 2 17-year-olds, 1 19-year-old.
But during a police lineup, Darlene can't positively identify any of them.
I didn't want to say I was absolutely positive. I was afraid of putting the wrong person in jail.
And even worse, this is before DNA. So even though the police can tell that Darlene was raped, there's no way to prove that it was these men who did it.
Those guys did not face a single charge for anything they did that night.
In the aftermath, a traumatized Darlene moves home to Chicago. She wants to be far away from the scene of her most horrific night.
Throughout the years, I moved on with my life, but I've always thought about Rick.
I never forgot her. I had felt that if this thing hadn't transpired, we would have been married. She always had a soft spot in my heart.
Decades later, Rick gets an unexpected call from a journalist.
She goes, "Do you know our Darlene Levin?" Darlene? She goes, "Yes, you know her by Dusty." That was all that needed to be said. Just like I'm doing now, I started crying. Because yes, I knew her.
The journalist claims she's uncovered what happened to the 3 suspects in the case.
Looking through their backgrounds, we found that things did not end well for any of them.
One was shot to death. One overdosed on heroin. And the last was found drowned in a shallow puddle in what police believe was murder.
God's judgment is better than mine, and his revenge is better than mine will ever be.
But it's not revenge that concerns Darlene and Rick. After almost 40 years, the events that tore them apart bring them back together.
They started emailing each other and calling each other, and they started being friends again.
Today, the couple sees one another regularly. And as for the marriage they talked of so many years ago,
None of us knows what the future truly holds. There's possibilities in either direction.
Who knows what's going to happen in the future? I think it would be perfect if we ended up together. We would get the last laugh, and we deserve it.